give everybody a couple of minutes to get in here. Aloha, everybody. Hey, Lane. Nice to see you. Doug Fine's on the house tonight. Wow, aren't we blessed?
Aloha.
Aloha, brother. Doug's got a great regenerative ag hemp course that you can get online if you go to dougfine.com. Doug, take a minute and share with everybody about that, will you?
All right, thanks a lot. And you're hearing my son's accordion and ukulele rehearsal in the background if it's seeping through. And then our dog's barking in terror about it all. Yeah, with the help of the Acres USA folks, great organization that you introduced me to originally, I put together a season-long regenerative hemp course that starts with soil building, which, gosh, for members of HFUU, I think everyone knows is where every kind of farming begins and ends. And it goes through even things like regenerative packaging, marketing within certain distances. And it's not just myself, it's a lot of people that are really knowledgeable on certain aspects. Like we had Roger Gush's here at the HFUU panel a week or so ago. And he's one of the experts that I speak with about things like hemp seed oil pressing. So it's a season-long course, and I appreciate you mentioning it. And great to see everyone's psyched to hear about KNF, and also just explaining that you really, it being bedtime here, you really don't want my video on today, just so you know. That's why it's not.
And Doug, people go to dougfine.com to register.
Yep, there's a link right there for the hemp course.
You know, Justin was last night on the panel, our friend Justin there, he was really great, real energetic. You know, his son, he helped his son with CBD, fresh CBD juice that he gave his son that cleared up his autistic issues, and just amazing stories. So he spoke very highly of your course. So I hope a lot of people take advantage of that. And what you're offering a discount? You're offering some kickback to HFUU? Is that what's going on?
Yes. Okay. So if somebody wants to do it through you have an HFUU link that I sent some time ago. So not to make it more complicated, but if anybody's an HFUU member and hits the contact button at dougfine.com, I'll resend that link so that they can sign up through that link, and HFU gets 20% of the tuition.
Beautiful. Katie, put the address to where you can send it to you directly, okay? In the chat.
Will do.
Thank you very much. So aloha, everybody. Wow, I want to get this going. You know, Drake is raring to go. And so nice to see everybody come in so early tonight. My name is Vincent Mean. I'm president of Hawaii Farmers Union United and of its foundation, and very heartened and excited about what's been going on for HFUU. We are in the process of, with all these presentations leading up to our convention, which is now December 9th through the 12th. We're going to be at Haleakua Farm and Garden Center there, Retreat Center in Huelo, Maui. All 13 of our chapter presidents and our leadership will be there. It's going to be quite several days. We have mainland presentations that are going to be occurring. And a man from Belize, Colombia is going to kick it off in the morning, the first morning on the 9th, with agroforestry systems he has there in Colombia. And then on the 10th, we have Dan Kittredge from the East Coast that has developed a bionutrient meter. And that's really exciting. Dan's a good friend. And then on Friday, Ray Archuleta. On Saturday, Ray Archuleta on the 11th from Kiss the Ground Movie will be presenting in the morning. And then we'll have lunch. And then in the afternoon, people can come back and get on Zoom, because these are all virtual presentations. But we're going to have farms that we've gone and videotaped to do training demonstrations on, so folks can benefit from all that. And then a Q&A afterwards with all our leadership in the boardroom there. Folks can interact, and we hope to have a real robust and experiential time with everybody. We're kind of taking our lemons that we got with this COVID variant, and we couldn't physically get together this year, and making it into lemonade, yeah? So please register. It's a free convention this year. When I say free, I'm asking that, hey, look, it's donations only. So please be generous with your donations, because that helps us be able to operate each year. And we want to continue to operate. We feel we're doing very relevant and essential work for agriculture and moving agriculture forward. One of the videos that will be featured at the convention will be on our soil health initiative, our statewide initiative that HFUU has been spearheading along with NRCS. So we're really excited about that. And that's been a 7-month program so far that we're now into the demonstration part of it. So there's going to be a video speaking about that, and we're going to have meeting with all of the representatives that were there yesterday, as a matter of fact, at Mahipono in their boardroom to discuss the movement of this forward. So, excuse me, it's an exciting time for HFUU. And tonight, I just would really like to thank you for coming, and Drake, our East Hawaii president, for stepping up to educate folks about KNF. You know, I'm a KNF practitioner. You know, I love working with IMOs. I'm an IMO foe. And I just really want to thank Drake for being here tonight to share his knowledge and experience with everybody, because he's such a great educator. So Drake, give it up to you, brother.
Hey, aloha. So usually, you know, sometimes people joke and they say they won't recognize me without my orange hat on. I always wear it, but tonight I'm gonna take off my orange hat and put on this. Oh, I got some farmer hair there, but this brand new spanking East Hawaii chapter HFUU hat here that we just got in the mail from Katie Zuber, and rep the union, because I'm happy to be here representing the Farmers Union tonight with you guys. Glad you all joined in, and glad to share some Korean natural farming with you guys. So they didn't, you know, they had the green one, didn't quite get the orange one yet, but I do actually have an orange HFUU hat. So if you don't have a hat that represents your chapter, check in with your chapter president, get one of those, rep the union, bring it all about, because you know, we're all about family farms, regenerative agriculture, and pumped for this year's convention, getting together with everybody. And, you know, want to just kick things off and be part of this speaker series to start in the beginning here. So before I get into what I'm going to go into today, I'm going to talk about some natural farming, inflammation, inflation, and climate change. But I want to read this little bit to you first. It's about inner truth. And it says, through openness and gentleness, the correct solution is reached. Arriving at the correct solution to a difficult situation requires a receptivity to inner truth. Unless we are willing to put aside the strong emotions of our egos and devote ourselves to discovering what is right, there can be no hope of progress at this time. Help only comes when we invite it with a sincere and innocent attitude. The I Ching teaches us a simple but effective method of influencing difficult people in arduous situations. It advises us to lay aside our prejudices, our feelings of being wounded, angry, or in the right. The second, to seek and understand the position of others and the lesson that the sage is teaching us with the situation. Even when another is truly out of line, it is only by accepting this and remaining balanced that you make it positive, or make it possible for positive change to occur. Gentleness and understanding create in others an unconscious willingness to be led. The superior person therefore avoids the use of anger and force in trying times, knowing that they only prolong the conflict. It is far wiser to accept that each experience we have is necessary for us to learn something about ourselves and about the higher laws of life. The greatest opening comes when we meet difficulty with acceptance, gentleness, and a desire to understand the lesson underneath. So that was helping me get myself aligned for today. And can you guys see my screen up there? Not, I guess. Oh yeah, good. Okay. So with all this, the inner truth, I want to share with you some of my inner truth. I don't promise that any of this is true. other than it's true for me. Take it for what it's worth. And I think what I'm into and what I've discovered here with these solutions in a gentle way of just continuing to go out there and present them to the people, to you who are interested, and to share and demonstrate these things, I've been able to get rid of inflammation, inflation, and climate change. Oh my. So let's dive in here and see what we got here. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so tonight got some microbial miracles for you guys. And, you know, I titled this talk, How KNF Will Save You from Inflammation, Inflation, and Climate Change. So I'm going to kind of go over those things to kind of outline what are a little bit of the problems, but I don't want to spend too much time there in the things because they're not always the most uplifting things. But in my life, and I'm assuming in yours, it's a reality of today, of 2020, 2021, coming into this new turning of the seasons, that we got some big things ahead of us. But I want to immediately after that jump into the solutions. And more than that, I want to share 4 solutions and their exact recipes with you. And these are things that you can take away and do at home and be part of the change, part of the solution, part of making everything available. And I'm going to leave plenty enough time for questions and answers afterward. So with that, jumping into inflammation. And this was inspired by Katie. I think she really wanted to hear about this, the inflammation of helping people out. And not to embarrass you too much, Katie, but bringing this up of our inflammation in the world is something a lot of us are suffering from, you know, and especially in our gut microbiome has suffered. So if you're tuning into like the current new health coming out, they're always talking about our gut microbiome, these things, getting probiotics into your system, trying to only use antibiotics when you absolutely need them. But also another source of our microbiome going down is our treated water. If we're always drinking chlorinated water, you know, we're no longer drinking fresh spring water. We're always putting this thing in, which chlorine is designed to keep microbes out of pools, and it keeps it clean from pathogens, but it also affects the probiotics and the living biotics. So, and so health has been said by many people that it starts in the gut. And so what I'm trying to do here is to elucidate this fact of if we can heal our guts and we can get healthy, then we can heal a lot of the other inflammation. You know, we get good food, we get clean blood. All these things start from our environment and increasing our immune system. So I want to put up this slide here, which this is from 2 years ago, convention that we had, where we had Gabe Brown come and talk to us, and I got to sit with him. And this is just kind of talking about this inflammation starting in our gut, that if you look at this, it's talking about how we can't even get the nutrition we need. You know, you look at that first point on that slide, it says copper's declined by 24% in the average 10 kinds of meat. And so even in our body's ability to heal ourselves, we're not getting those minerals back. And so this inflammation, all these things, the digestibility index, even if it's in our food, isn't coming into our thing. And it says participants can now see my screen. That's good. And if you look at this fact on the right side, it says an individual have to consume twice as much meat, 3 times as much fruit, and 4 times as much veggies. And I think this was compared to 1940. So today, to get that same healing, we have to eat so much more of this. And why is that? Well, it has a lot to do with this next, the bottom right slide, which shows that these are different ways of managing our land. That the top one is organic. And most of us think, okay, we're going to eat organic. We're going to do, good things. But if you look across the chart there at the nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and I think the WEOC is the organic content in the soil, you can see that even under organic, those things are at a low number. Then you get into no-till with low diversity, the numbers are starting to rise. No-till with medium diversity and high synthetic, I think that's what it stands for, you're getting a little bit more. but only when you're getting into Gabe Brown's total system here, where you're doing no-till, high density, no synthetics, and livestock, are you getting into these numbers where you're starting to get the nutrition applied. So a lot of what Gabe Brown talks about, polycultures, those types of things, we also do in Korean natural farming, where we increase that same microbial density to bring up the organic content, to bring these things into our soils. So when we talk about inflammation, if we can get our food to be more medicinal and to have these nutrients that we want in our food, we can start to have solutions. So to move on to inflation, I'm just outlining the problem. So this is our second problem that I said I was going to talk about. And I say 2020 was pretty bad. It was bad for a number of reasons. You know, we did all kinds of things to try to get increase health and take care of one another. But in the middle of that, we also printed a ton of money. And some of that money I got as a, was sent to me as a check, and it was great. And it brought, about short-term benefits to me, but I didn't really earn that money and I didn't create it. It was kind of created out of thin air. So this top chart here, looking at this of we're going out in time, and this Fred chart outlines money in circulation. And you see when it hits 2020, it just skyrockets up. And if you remember the $6 trillion bill, and then now we have $3 trillion more dollars coming out. Those are just freshly printed. They say they're going to come out of the economy some way, but a lot of that money was just freshly printed, borrowed money. And so they printed about 40% of our money in circulation that was printed in 2020 and since then. And so the way I translate this, and I'm not an economicist. I don't even know how to say that, economist. But what it means to me on the ground is that basically if 40% more money was printed, that means all of the money I have in my hand, it made me 40% poorer. And as a farmer, as someone who's doing direct things to the ground, I didn't really get a pay raise. Food is still where it's at. And I'm not didn't see the 40% hike there. So the fertilizers, all these farming is going to cost me more and more money. And if you look down at this bottom chart, you'll see the rock phosphate, the prices are rising, and just everywhere all around things are going up. So I wanted to bring further elucidation to this inflation problem. And this was just, I went to the, I searched consumer price index today, and I'm worried about people being able to eat in the future. If you look at this in the past year, it says in the last 12 months, I think food has increased 6%. Energy has gone up 30%. All these items are just skyrocketing at the store. And then you look at this other publication they put out. It says consumer prices for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs is up 10.5% for the year that ended in September 21. So that means the same things you were going to buy at the store are now 10% more. And so all this money coming in, I'm worried about people being able to eat food. And as a farmer, you have to raise your price if your fertilizer price is going up. And it's all this money that's chasing these fewer goods and all these things. So I just want to bring this up as one of the problems that I see on the future. And then I'll get to the can of solutions of how I see fixing this. The third problem that I'm pretty concerned about here is what they call climate change. And there's a lot of different ways to interpret this. Again, I'm not a geographist or a climate scientist person. I'm a farmer, salt of the earth, computer programmer, educator, someone who makes a living right here and sees the weather changing. But one thing I do know as a farmer is that if I go into the forest, a rich, intact canopy, and I reach my finger into the ground, it's cool, it's moist, it smells good, it's alive. And so as we go and we start to till the land and we deforest the land and we start to run through these monocultures, what starts to happen to me from my perspective is we start to get this climate shift where before there was this cool soil keeping the earth really stable that wasn't fluctuating, versus if you go into a desert and you'll see that all of a sudden it'll be really hot during the day and then it'll get really cold at night. And when you start to have these huge temperature fluctuations, that I think on a whole, as we start to do that to the earth, it starts to create what we call climate change. And I'm not saying that I'm a master at this and the sun has a lot to do with it, and so do a lot of factors, but just from on the ground, what we can do, what we can see. And so what I want to do tonight is highlight the fact that farmers, especially regenerative farmers, are the folks that are the closest to land. And instead of trying to go to conservation things, or like, money people, or people building machines, farmers are on the land every day. And by improving our practices to increase climate stability, we have a chance to make a huge difference. So again, here, this slide is Gabe Brown talking to us. And if you can see up on this screen here, there's these two types of soil. The one on the, I guess it's the left-hand side, is this nice looking soil where there's all kinds of ground and water percolation. And then you have a dead soil next to that where there's nothing happening and no water percolates in. So when we talk about climate change for fires and flooding, if your soil's dead, how can it hold the moisture to stop a fire? How can it hold the moisture to stop a flood? And so the more we kill the soil, the more these floods and these extreme weather events become more prevalent. And I'm not saying this is the only answer to this. It's a very complex problem, but it's something that I see in my daily life. And I was really inspired by that Woody Harrelson movie, which Woody Harrelson opened one of our farmer events just recently on Maui, about 2 years ago. And maybe he wants to pump up the union a bit. But there was this movie called Kiss the Ground, I believe is the name. And they had Ray Archuleta, who's a great soil scientist for the NRCS. And this graph this photo that you see with the world and all those emissions, you can kind of see a picture of the globe there and all this red in the top. Those are the carbon emissions that happen from tillage. And if you watch that movie, he showed how the carbon gets sequestered, but then as it becomes plowing season across the northern hemisphere, all this gases and things and emissions are released into the atmosphere. So again, bringing this idea of that farmers can be a huge, either make it or break it for climate change. Because if you look at the picture in the bottom right, you see the no-till system that's sucking up carbon dioxide, that's holding water, versus the tilled system on the right that's degenerative, that's releasing these things, that's letting the water evaporate into the atmosphere, that's causing the CO2 to be released and all these things. So what I focus on in Korean natural farming is look at these photos. Oftentimes when we think, okay, trees, forests can save us, we're thinking about the carbon sequestration above the ground, the stuff that we can see. But what I want you to look at is look at this root structure of this grass going. And what happens is the plants take sunlight and exude sugars. And those sugars then create carbon-based fungus that then can pull more toxins out of the air. And then as it rains, they can filter that water, make it clean, and hold a better soil moisture holding capacity. And so the picture on the right is a fungal body. And these things are just made of this stable carbon that goes into the ground. So it's not just plants that you have to think about. You also have to think about the microorganisms that are able to pull these exudates and grow and hold, I was told once that the Great Plains of America had like between 20 and 30 feet of stable humus, which was able to hold all these toxins and hold the moisture and keep the fertility there until we plowed it and created the Dust Bowl, I think in the 1920s or so. But in the lower picture of the mycelium, and just thinking that, it's more than plants. When you create good soil, you're creating a whole ecosystem that can tie up so much more of these things that cause, in my opinion, climate change. And this last slide on climate change, I just want to show you. I found this map today when I was researching this. And this is just the change in cropland from 1960 to 2000 that you're seeing as the big picture there. So it's not showing like where is all the farmland, it's just showing a change. But if you see that change, you'll see pretty much everywhere on Earth that's not a desert or frozen is being farmed or being touched by agriculture. If agriculture is changing there, it means there's ag happening there. So look at that entire globe, and of the usable surface that we have access to, farmers are the closest to the land than anyone else. If you think of the forest and where we have conservation, it's minuscule compared to the areas where people are in close contact with the soil. And this upper graph is showing the land use over time. That for hundreds of years, up until the 1500s, we didn't do much on the land. We weren't messing with it. There were forests. And then all of a sudden in this, between, the 1900s and 2016, when this graph goes, we've changed so much of the land into agriculture. So imagine if all that agriculture is then happening as regenerative and is acting to stabilize our soils, stabilize, hold moisture, buffer these toxins, and bring this climate together. And if you look here, it's like, of the habitable land, which is 71% of land available, 50% of that is in agriculture. So it's not saying, in it, 37% is in forests. So agriculture actually has a bigger footprint than forests. So the ability for farmers to really do and be like the front runners of like climate stabilization and these things, we just have an immense responsibility to not only produce food, but to produce sustainability on our island Earth for the next 7 generations. And if not us, who? And if not us, when? Right? So with those big looming things that used to keep me up at night, these days I'm a little bit more relaxed. I see the union doing good things. I see people tuning in and all these things. And what's happened in my life that gives me hope in all these things happening is Korean natural farming. So if you're not familiar with KNF and Korean natural farming, which I hope it's kind of an interesting name for it, because I'm saying it's going to solve inflammation, inflation, and climate change. So people don't necessarily think of farming as being the front runner to that, but it's this guy whose picture is in the center, Master Han Kyu Cho, who I met in 2008, and he's basically changed my life. He set my course towards natural farming, towards understanding the ecosystems that I was talking about, and giving me a perspective that enables me to engage in the world where I feel like I can make a real difference. And so what I've done is through his teachings, they landed in Hawaii in 2005. I got involved in that, and I've been working to help translate it as an elementary school teacher into these words on the right. So on the right, you're looking at the 9 vital solutions that Master Cho has. And I've taken what came to us as these acronyms and or descriptions, and the words that you see there, I've translated them into the bold words. So I've translated into microbes, protectors, food, cleanser, medicine, structure, fuel, reproduction, and minerals. And of those things, those are the 9 tools that are as different as a hammer and a saw to a square and a level for a construction worker, as those tools are for a soil worker, someone who wants to restore the climate, who wants to gain fertility, who wants to create their own solutions at home so that they can beat inflation. And these solutions, all of them, are edible as a human. So my medicine cabinet is made from my garden, and these solutions right here that I take personally in is my truth of my health that I build. So these solutions are just amazing. That's why I say they're the solutions for today's problems. And it's not only me that's saying this. The University of Hawaii has studied these solutions. They've gone through and they've said, okay, all the 9 core solutions, they've done peer-reviewed processes on how to make them. All of these papers are available at knf.org/research, which is the Peer KNF Foundation that I'm a part of. We've been promulgating these peer-reviewed accredited documents. And just recently, the University of Hawaii Manoa just released this paper on the right, which is talking about natural farming, a comparison between organic and conventional and Korean natural farming, on the ability to bring these microbes, the phosphorus stabilizing or solubilizing and nitrogen fixing bacteria. And if you read through this paper, it's amazing how much it just sings the praises for natural farming, that it's a method that should be further researched by our educational bodies, and that it really helps to increase the microbes on the ground in a scientific peer-reviewed way. So it's not just some guy from the West that's done this, has this magic. It's actually peer-reviewed, beautiful, great science. And thanks to all the people that have helped out and to make this happen. So those papers are available at pureknf.org/research. And then if you're still not aware of what KNF is with my broad overview, because it's kind of a big topic, there was a documentary shot in 2016-ish, around then, called In Search of Balance. And I've taken a short clip of that and posted it at knfsupport.com/tutorials. And that links up here on the screen. And it's a quick little overview of what is Korean natural farming. And it's only about a 12-minute video, really well done, highly produced documentary. And if you're interested in that, you can search on your popular video services for In Search of Balance to watch the full thing. And then this year, I was also fortunate enough to speak with the Farm Apprentice Mentorship Program that the HFUU offers. And I gave like a 2.5-hour talk on like, what are these 9 solutions and how does that apply to microbial theory and kind of a good versus bad, and how do we get the microbes restored. And so both those videos are available at knfsupport.com/tutorials if you want to dive a little bit deeper kind of on this introductory way of going about it. And then since I get the opportunity, I've also taken Master Cho's information that he's put out. He's written some old books here that are kind of Kringlish. And instead of just like rewriting it's not just a copy of the book, it's a complete rewrite of the book. And my virtual background's kind of messing with this here, but I've written an ebook and a recipe book to translate these things. And so the URL is up there. It's naturalfarminghawaii.net/books. And this will get you all of these recipes. So all 9 of the course solutions plus more of them, because tonight I'm only going to be able to basically get into 3 of them in detail. And a 4th solution is how to apply that. So of the many solutions, these books, this available information, just want to make it available that you can learn about this. And if you purchase some of those things, it helps me continue to do what I'm doing and continue to be part of the Farmers Union as well, and bringing these educational talks forward. So without further ado, let's jump into the direct solutions now that you have an idea kind of what KNF is, hopefully. Korean natural farming, of these solutions and how they fit in. So I'm going to give you tonight 3 of them. And these are pages from my book. So if you go get the book, you'll see these. So the first number 1 solution that I always encourage people to do for inflammation is what I call the KNF protectors. And they're also known as lactic acid bacteria, but that can be kind of a scary thing. But if you listen to Cab Baber, who's going to be part of this series as well, he talks about EM, and this is a very similar process to that. So if you're familiar with that. So if you want your inflammation to go away, and this is my inner truth. This is not medical advice, even though I am Dr. Drake. I'm not giving you medical advice here. I've seen people just take 1 ounce of this solution, put it in a glass of water, and drink it with their meals. And I've seen them get rid of lactose intolerance, which is you drink milk and your gut starts to hurt and you're getting inflamed in your gut. What happens is the lactose is going into your gut and it's rotting and causing these problems. But if you drink the lactic acid bacteria, it's able to ferment these things. And instead of rotting, it actually ferments and is separated in a way that your body can digest these things. So that's the way it's curing inflammation and lactose intolerance. I've also seen this reverse food poisoning, where if you're eating a bunch of, salmonella, or you got infected somehow by some bad food, and these microbes are creating botulism in you, which causes intense gut pain, this inflammation internally, eating the lactobacillus will get rid of the gut problems and those bacteria's food source. Also, my sister, someone I know, I don't want to embarrass her, has suffered from IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, for years, and anytime she would eat wheat or these things, it would cause intense discomfort in her belly. And by taking this for over about a month and a few weeks of use, and taking it with each meal, she now doesn't have the same type of discomfort. So this is my, my truths. And I was just talking yesterday about people with rashes, and there was a dog with a really bad belly rash, and taking this same solution, diluting it with water and rubbing it on the belly of this dog, and the rash cleared up. And so these are just my own personal testimonies. It's kind of anecdotal, but every time I've tried it, I've seen it work. So there's no, I'd like to see more scientific studies on this. But so those are the solutions that this will offer. In general, this is so easy to make at home. You follow these 4-step recipes, where essentially what you do is you take rice as if you're going to cook it. When you're washing your rice, your white rice, and you get that starchy water. On your first pour off, pour that starchy water into a shallow pan or some sort of dish and expose that to the air. And so you'll see that in step 1, there's kind of that cloudy looking water. That is then left out for 1 to 3 days. Depends on the smell and your temperature. But that collects all these lactobacillus out of the air. You just leave it out where it can be in the air with good airflow. It collects the lactobacillus. Then those lactobacillus are put into milk. When you put it into milk in step 2, you'll see in that picture that it separates. The top becomes curds, which is like cheese, and the bottom becomes whey. And that takes about 3 to 7 days, depending on temperature as well. But then what you're interested in is the liquid that was on the bottom. So the curds that rose, you can take those, mix them with garlic and some, they're delicious to eat. But the whey at the bottom is then mixed with equal parts of brown sugar in step 3. And what that does is it stabilizes this solution. So then you can keep it at room temperature, and it's not going to continue to rot or ferment. And it's that solution, after you're at step 3, that you're adding 1 ounce to the glass of water each time you eat for this internal use. Now, this also has a lot of uses for plants. I didn't mention any of them here, but these things, what I call them is the protectors. So anytime your plant is suffering from, like, say, powdery mildew is attacking, or some sort of fungus is attacking your plants, or you're getting these problems, spraying this diluted 1 to 1,000 on your plants can help to build this shield. And you're putting a bunch of tiny little microbes that are these probiotics that help to fight back. And of course, if your plant is suffering from any inflammation type of thing, which totally happens to plants as well, the same thing, as you spray it on, the plant absorbs it and will help it to avoid this inflammation. So this slide up here that I have is the picture of what this is. Somebody, I just pulled this from the Korean Natural Farming Group on Facebook. This is somebody making lactobacillus at home. It's right there on their oven, and they weren't using the oven for it. I'm assuming they just put it on the oven to take the photo, but this is something that somebody just learned over the internet, made at home, and now they have a solution to inflammation and much more. I could literally talk for hours and hours and hours about LAB. Sometimes I do, and you can get those videos on my YouTube. But so now you got a solution: lactic acid bacteria. You can make this at home. You got your own KNF protectors. Inflammation should no longer be a problem for you. Second solution I want to get into is, how do we deal with inflation? Okay, so fertilizer prices are skyrocketing, all these things. Well, if you can start your own home garden, you can get all the minerals you need to grow from the ocean. So, and this is here in Hawaii, and even if you're around the world, getting sea salt, you're getting a solution. The key with all this is to dilute it. So on this recipe here, it talks about just gathering seawater. So you want to gather the seawater from the upper surface if you can, where it's really microbially active, or you can gather it from deep down where you're going to get much more minerals. So it depends on how you do it. Oftentimes I just go to the seashore right at the beach where it's breaking, and I'll just gather a bucket and just get the seawater in that top inch layer. And now I'm getting this free resource that has every mineral. So the chart on the very right of this picture is showing all the breakdowns that, say, for instance, I was, my plants and things were nutritionally deficient in gold. Well, seawater has it. Say they're deficient in boron, it's right there in seawater. Say they're deficient in, what is it? I don't know. There's aluminum, or I don't know why they'd be deficient in aluminum, but say they were. This can save you, because if you are going to the store, your fertilizer cost, where you're buying it from someone that's refining something, or it's shipped to you, or you have to get these minerals that are shipped over many miles, that's only going to get more and more expensive as energy rises. Food costs are rising. All these things. Putting this type of solution onto a pasture can actually increase that nutritional value that Gabe Brown was talking about. And that this solution right here, it's right at our feet. We don't even often look at the ocean as a source of fertility. The whole key to this, though, is dilution. If you're taking straight seawater and putting it on your land, it'll cause problems. If you're drinking straight seawater, it'll cause problems. But putting salt water, diluted 1 to 30, and you drink that, it's the same salinity as your blood. And so I've never, I don't taste blood that often, but if I cut myself and I somehow taste blood, I never think to myself, boy, this is salty. I think, oh, it tastes mineral rich. And those are the same types of minerals that are in this seawater. So a way to beat inflation, you want to get indigenous fertilizer right from your door. It's the sea. Go down there with a 5-gallon bucket and you got everything you need to grow. Some people grow just hydroponically, adding sea solids, which is just the sea salt right this way. So diluting it. So now you have a solution for inflation. No matter what, the ocean is not going to charge you more money to collect it. I mean, maybe the bucket you buy it in to go get the ocean water might rise, but the sea is never going to raise in price. It's always free. It's always there. So you now have a thing to beat inflation and get all the minerals you need without worrying about any of the economic issues that are going on. So I got climate change. And since this is a big topic and super scandalous in a lot of ways, heard you can even get banned from YouTube for talking about this. I'm going to go into my 2 inner truth ways of dealing with what I think are some of the best solutions to climate change. So when I look around the earth, I see so many fields that are just destroyed, and land that's just in the worst shape. Just land that needs help more than just being rested. It actually needs the microbes regenerated into it. It needs the life given back to it. So in combination with putting the sea salt out there, those minerals I was talking about, if you can put these disgustingly cheap microbes, and I call it this because if you let it go long, it really stinks. But if you get it early, it is really good. So this solution that's up here is you're taking water, mixing in some soil microbes that you can find under any tree, any leaf litter. You just grab that soil that's right on the top there, mix it with some starch, which could be a potato. I've used bread. It could be taro, breadfruit, cassava, any of these things we have, and a little bit of the seawater from before, or 5 tablespoons of sea salt into this 5-gallon bucket. And you can create this microbial solution. So 1 5-gallon bucket can be diluted into create 10, or excuse me, can be diluted 1 to 10 to create 50 gallons of solution to treat the land. So say as I'm driving into town and I look and it's like, oh, all this, if I was on Maui and I look and I see, oh, all this destroyed land from years of intensive agriculture, putting a little sprayer like this in my car, and as I drive by, I can start to be a climate front runner. I can be someone who's restoring the microbiome. And it's not just like any microbiome, and it's not just pathogens. You're getting the indigenous microbes from that area, you're feeding them, you're bringing them to larger amounts, and you're putting them right back to where they are. So you're not introducing any foreign microbes, you're not bringing in any pathogens. You're just simply taking what's there, enhancing and feeding it, and then putting it right back to where you're getting it from. And this is the same strategy we need to use, for everything. Find the kids where they're at, educate them, and then send them back to where they're from. This is the way to uplift all society. And so when I talk about just microbes, I'm also talking, on these higher dimensional levels, that these same concepts are true. So the recipes up here on the screen, you want to take a screenshot, you want to get it, it'll tell you how to do it. It's basically talking about the bubbling down at the bottom part of this graph. It's showing that as you start to grow it, the blue line that's going up is your beneficial good microbes. And then if you let it go too long, however, there will be sort of more anaerobic. They're not necessarily pathogens, but they're more fertilizer-like microbes. So if you really want to get this good microbes back to the land, you have to spread this solution within the first 24 hours to 40 hours or so. And you'll really put these good microbes back. And that's why I call it disgustingly cheap, because if you let it go too long, it can smell pretty bad. And if it smells bad, you're putting out more of a fertilizer than you are of the microbes themselves. And I want to give credit where credit is due on this, that this recipe actually comes from Master Cho's son, Cho Young Song. And he taught me how to make this, and came to Maui and did a whole bunch of good things. And he's a great guy. His organization is called Jadam, and that's a great thing. And the next slide is just a picture of what that looks like. When I was talking about the bubbles on the previous slide, it's kind of some hand waving stuff, and my drawings are maybe okay. But what I'm saying is that when you see these bags that are leaning into this 5-gallon bucket, those are filled with the potatoes and the microbial soil. And when you put it in that bucket in the right ratio for 24 hours, you'll get something that looks right like this. And what's causing those bubbles? It's all that indigenous microbial activity that's growing there. It's starting to go. And so when you take that and you dilute it and then you put it back to the land, now you've kickstarted what would have been there. And so this is a great way to get these microbes back into the soil so they can begin to hold the moisture in. So they can begin to, as it rains, they create particulates that will absorb the water instead of sending out, floods and runoff. So this is by far one of the easiest recipes you can do. Even if you don't have land, that there's a yard, there's a grass field, there's everything around us, that if we start to think of this as every single piece of land that we interact with could be this microbial buffer, could be this climate stabilization thing, and that this solution here costs mere pennies to treat many acres. It's like, this is the type of solution that I see as something that we can start to mitigate climate change and mitigate climate, and build this solution on the level of moisture and, stopping fires and those things. I'm not, I don't want to extrapolate this too far out, but just as a practical level, as a farmer, if every farmer was putting these microbes into the land, we would have that richness there. So I hope that's jiving with you guys. And my last bit for climate change is I really believe that I'm a huge believer in integrated animal farming. So often do I go around and I see animals outcast to feedlots thousands of miles away or hundreds of miles away from people, treated poorly, and it's what I see as a solution is bringing these animals back into our cities, having them deal with our waste. And when you raise them with the Korean farming deep litter system, you're not creating this waste problem. You're actually creating fertilizer, and they become your composting piles. And there's no smell. And the runoff that comes out of here is actually cleaner water than would be, majority of livestock raised like pigs and things. They have these huge manure lagoons, and you can smell them from miles away. you come up to my place and people spend hours with my pigs. They want to jump in, pet them, roll around. They're not disturbed by this. And I see this as a way to close our loops that oftentimes, you know, how much food waste in America we throw away. And it's great. Like the Kiss the Soil movie talked about this composting and how they're collecting this compost. And when I watched that, I was like, that's great. But what we can do is we can even accelerate that composting via taking this food, fermenting it, feeding it to animals, incorporating these Korean natural farming deep litter systems, bringing these and giving these animals a humane, respectable, loving life where they have interaction with people and they're not just outcast to these feedlots. And so I see this as a huge thing. You know, I see on the some climate agenda think tanks are saying they want to get rid of animal agriculture, and that we shouldn't have. You know, animals are bad. But it's like if we're not having the animals, these create the manures that then feed the vegetables. So if you're going to switch to a plant-based diet, you have to think about, well, where did the fertility for the vegetables come? I often hear things like, well, you know, we'll just get rid of the animals and then we'll all go and just eat plant-based diets. But most of the organics today are coming from chicken manure, bone meal, blood meal. And if you get rid of the animals, where's your fertility going to come from? So I'm an advocate of, you know, whether you eat the animals or not, I'm not saying one way or another on that. Primarily what my operation is I raise pigs to as a breeding operation and as an educational facility for people to experience this no smell agriculture. But I know that animals are integrated into this loop in nature. You know, there's animals that keep the plants from getting out of control and they bring everything back to light, you know, and the manures are some of the best ways to revive our soils. So using Korean natural farming with no smell and bringing these in, and I would love to elaborate further on how these things happen and what you get. Um, so what I do is I offer tours here at my place, and I also do farming. And so this is a picture. The pig on the brown looking pig. His name is Papa Lau Lau. And he's my boar. He's my great guy. And I love if I jump in the cage or the pen, he loves laying over and getting belly rubs. And he's such a lover. And that's a picture of my deep litter system. You notice there's no manure, there's no flies. It's all broken down on the floor. And then that material that's created behind him that he's standing on actually becomes the fertilizer for my farm. So I'm getting all this NPK, great microorganisms that are sitting under him to become this closed loop integrated animal farming that really can boost productivity and make me about 100 times faster than just composting by feeding these animals. And if I was to, you know, to scale this up, it would scale just fine. Um, and you know, we get in there. The pig on the upper right is baby Bacon. She's one of my favorite pigs. She's about 5 years old, and she actually lives with the chicken in the back, and they're roommates and they hang out with each other. And we get in there all the time and pet them. And then I also raise chickens with the Korean natural farming no smell method. And I'm able to raise my own eggs. And the chickens are great because they'll eat pretty much all my composting waste and all this. And so bringing these animals, you know, I could literally have this pig pen and sleep in the pig pen at night and not get disgusted and not have gross smells coming off it. And it, like, literally the pigs have such a beautiful view and their place is amazing. So I really encourage everybody to think about integrated animal farming, as well as increasing the microbes, as well as using the resources like the ocean, and to increase the probiotics like lactic acid bacteria as these solutions for what we can use. And I've given you the recipes for most of these things, and you can see these examples as knowing they exist. And I think once you know these things exist and you get these ideas, then it's something we can start to conceive of and bring into our reality and shift and start to talk about and bring these things in. So with that, I want to let you know there's many more solutions that are in Korean natural farming. But I did want to have a bit of time to get into questions. And if you want to talk about those things, And again, I like to say this was just a microscopic introduction because there's so much more. And if you see up here on the very right of this screen, that's the formulation. So if you are able to make all 9 of these solutions, you can formulate them to help you with pretty much anything you need on your farm. It does soil prep, seed soak solution to grow more leaves, to make your plants ease better into blooming, to help them when they start fruiting, and to help them at the very end when they harvest. So Korean natural farming is a big system that's all together. But I wanted to give you a slice of it today and really be in this talk to show how, it's more than just Korean natural farming. It's like these are solutions. We can save money. We can deal with health problems. We can, um, you know, all these things that we need to solve today's problems. So my book, again, if you want to get it, it's also at knfsupport.com, which is the website run by our foundation. If you're interested in training in person, KNF Farm is my website that has my in-person trainings that I do. I have a training coming up in January, which is only 1 spot left. And then February, I have another training coming up, and there's a few spots there. And then if you like what I'm talking about, if you go to KNF video, it redirects you to my YouTube, and there's tons of info there. I think one issue I'm trying to solve right now for myself is to kind of categorize this information and to make it more available. One of my things is I've been so into this. I put out so much information that, like you go to my YouTube, there's like 800 something videos, and they're all, it's all this great stuff, and some of it's better than others, but trying to get this and share it. And if you got the time, the energy, and if you don't have the time, I'm working on content to bring that more available. And my last slide here is that in terms of trying to make things more available, I've been making myself available once a week on Sundays at 9 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time on YouTube. And I do an office hour live. So say you take some of the recipes you learned tonight and you're unsure about something and you get stuck at a step, join in Sunday, ask a question, get into it. All kinds of people from all over the world. Like people are tuning in from South Africa, Finland, the Caribbean, United States, pretty much anywhere that people speak English and can understand me. People are tuning in, and I love answering these questions. I love supporting this community. And so if you do have a question and you want to get it answered during the office hours, email me, Drake at pureknf, that's pureknf.org, and can help you out there. And if you really want to get coaching mentorship, maybe we can work out something where, it's always value for value type of thing. And speaking of that, make sure you join the HFU convention, kick down for the fundraiser, help them out. It helps me out. I'm the East Hawaii president. I love doing this. I love the community that's part of HFUU, the leadership, the membership. And I want to give a special shout out to Katie, because she's just been an absolute rock star this year and has been just amazing. So with that, let's jump into some questions. I think the easiest way to do it is to throw the questions into the chat. So I'm gonna take my screen here and unshare that. Or oh no, I stopped my video. It's not what I want to do. I want to stop the share. And I'll restart my video. Hey. And so here, okay, I'm gonna scroll up to the top here and just see what we got in terms of questions. So it looks like we had a blurry image at one point. Hopefully that got set up. I think you guys got a few of those things. I hope all that worked and you saw some of those slides. If not, I'll email those to Katie and she can share the slides with this. And I'll probably list it on our foundation website. Okay. So Drake in his presentation. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Okay. So Mike has a question here. KNF is starting to take hold on the islands. Large agricultural producers, 50 acres or more, are starting to come around due to the increase in imported chemical fertilizers. Or due to increases in imported fertilizers. I think you mean price on that. But have reservations because they'd rather buy solutions than make it. Where can they get products? Okay, so this is a great question. Thanks, Mike, for asking. My I know Vince is learned natural farming and is a practitioner, and I think he has them available through, he had a KNF dispensary at one point. So if
Yep, you
when
still
we
do,
get,
Drake, still do.
yeah. Okay, so Vince, where can people go to contact you to get into that?
You can send president@hfuu.org would be a good way to reach me. Also,
Okay.
357-4999. We have OHN available, fermented plant juice, LAB, water soluble calcium, Calphos. So yeah, Ricky Apana and myself have been making them. Plus we have biochar available if anybody wants Kiavi biochar.
Awesome. And then I know also on Maui, I've Bronson Lebrowski, who's part of the Haleakala chapter, has come over here and trained with me, and I think he has them available on a small scale. I know he was making ferments from sweet potatoes and a few other quality ingredients. So primarily, what I've been doing is educating folks. For me to manufacture and to do all these things, it's hard. What I can, however, do is through the foundation and through myself is to validate and help accredit you. So if you've learned this and you want to get like the pure KNF stamp of approval to show like you're making good stuff, then I can help you with that. And so I want to help more manufacturers get out there and to be doing this. For me myself to dive into that realm, it's been challenging. I juggle a lot of things, like even Vince being the president, and here he is making things. It's, every farmer has a challenge to do that. But if you ever want to make solutions and you want them tested and you want to know, hey, did I make the right stuff? Again, my email is drake@pureknf if you want to reach out to me that way. But I can help test. All right, Ken, you just got some love. Nice. And these things, so the education, and there are folks out there making them on each island, but we really should get a directory together and maybe work through the union to do that, because as commercial producers come online, first thing you want to know is that the product you're getting is good. A lot of people, you can make these, but there's a lot of ways to shortcut, and there's a lot of ways to make them that they're not like, it's like if I'm using a hammer, but the hammer, I'm using a rubber mallet to hit in nails, I'm going to break it. So you got to know that your hammer is solid to be hitting the nails. Like that analogy of like that accreditation, that help is what I can help provide. And really, so and if you want to start making them and be like, okay, we're going to make them in-house, or someone wants to start a manufacturing facility type thing, I highly encourage that. Would love to train your people so that they're tuned in, they know the best. I've done this for almost a decade and can shortcut people a whole bunch. I've made more mistakes than you can imagine, and through my mistakes, I can share that knowledge and that intuition to help you out with that. So, and then, yeah, Vince, maybe we can get that together and really get that easy for folks to get going. Cause I know
Sounds
this is
great.
coming in.
No, Drake,
Yeah.
that sounds great. As a matter of fact, I really, I agree with you as far as failing. I think it would be really good if people start to make these to fail at the first, because then it's going to test their commitment level to really get it. If you're successful the first time around, you're hooked. So you're hooked, and it's something where no, you did a great presentation here, Drake, and you represented well, man. And appreciate all that it represents. You know, you could have gotten so much deeper too, like you said, like in just my favorite is IMO4. I'm just now, what I'm taking is I'm spreading IMO4 like Parmesan cheese underneath the garden area and then putting cut wheatgrass flats upside down on top of it. And my shovel now, hard as could get out, you know, the soils that we got, a lot of folks here that garden and stuff, you know, the soil's real hard. Well, my shovel's going down 6 inches after 2 weeks. You know, it's amazing what the microbes will do. So right on, Drake. Good stuff, brother.
Yeah. So a couple more questions. Mike's also asking, what type of equipment are currently being used to apply solutions on large farms? On here on my farm, we have 25 acres, and what I use is a 40-gallon sprayer off my tractor. And from what I understand is, even though the tractor pump is pumping it up fairly well, it's the impact of how hard the microbes hit the plants and things that's going to damage them. So as long as I'm spraying it on a fine mist and kind of misting it out, I'm actually getting, it's really easy to drive around with 40 gallons. The application rate is about 25 gallons per acre. So for me, I'm treating fruit trees. I'm not spraying every bit of that. I'm just driving around and spraying the canopy. If you want to get an automated system, they sell like kind of Venturi sprayers that'll spray off the back off large scale tractor implements. And also, if you're going to put out the solid solutions, compost spreaders that they sell for tractors, those types of things are excellent. On a medium sized scale, what I do is I fill these solutions. I tend to go liquid a lot when I'm doing these things. So I'll take the microbes and make them into compost teas and spread them out via spraying, because almost every farm already has equipment to spray something, whether, and if you've been spraying pesticides in something, take the lactic acid bacteria, the protectors recipe, and fill it up and put those in there. And within a few days of them being in that system, they'll eat out those toxins, and they'll be able to, then you'll be able to use biological agents in those same equipment. And you'll then be able to spray probiotic and switching over to this microbial building way of life. And so on a medium scale level, I have, and I should get a sponsorship from Maruyama, but I have a Maruyama MS75E, which is a little weed whacker engine, which is a little hooked to a spray gun. So a little weed whacker engine that I run out of a 35-gallon trash can. And that's what we've been using for more of the garden areas that I have to be on foot, that I can't get the tractor into. And when I was doing my commercial papaya project, I was doing a 3-acre field, and I was able to get a 200 or 300-foot hose and run it off that small unit and be able to reach all the papayas in there quite easily. And then if you're on a home scale level, just like a 2-gallon spray unit, or if you're on a like a house plant level, just even those little squirt bottles. And I'll use those sometimes for just making small batches and doing things. So it really, if you can liquefy these solutions, you can scale to any level. And what's the most important is the frequency you're doing this. If you're doing like market garden row crops, like lettuce, chards, kales, things like that, spraying weekly is important. And if you're out on a level of like the papaya crop, I was trying to hit that every other week and to spray all the plants. Papaya is a really heavy feeder. And here on our home orchard, I maybe get to spray once a month. I really need to do less support and more farming. But my farm's still alive and it kicks butt because of Korean natural farming, and it gives me a large margin of error. But getting out monthly to do an orchard crop, or even twice a year if you have a huge orchard. But the more you can get out there, the better you can do it. So a question here is from Bailey is, what is the difference between permaculture and Korean natural farming? And the answer is that they are synergistically linked with each other. Permaculture is usually dealing with systems approaches and formulas that are above the ground, things we can see. Korean natural farming is like permaculture for the microbes, for the invisible things you can't see. So they go hand in hand. If you're practicing permaculture principles, you have a PDC, permaculture design certificate, and then you got a pure KNF, solutions making certificate, and you would be just holistically there. You would know what to do below the ground. You would know what to do above the ground. So as your permaculture system is growing, you can jumpstart it by putting these indigenous microbes and putting them there to then grow your permaculture system even better. And her second question here is, can you use plant-based milk for the LAB solution? You can make the protectors from beans. If you take beans and soak them, put them in a blender, blend them up, and then leave them in the refrigerator for about a month, the beans water above that will be highly concentrated in lactic acid bacteria. So there's a lot of ways to accomplish the recipes I'm talking about. But understanding the principles of what they are and those things, that's what I teach in my class. That's what I try to convey to folks during the office hours and all these things. But those, you can also make the protectors from beans. So, if you're going to ask what kind of beans, maybe black-eyed peas or something would work. Soybeans, something like that. Okay, so Barbara is asking, is it possible to aerate the disgustingly cheap microbes? Yes, you do not need to. If you're just making it statically, it's better not to. However, if it started to smell and you bubble it, you can then get rid of those anaerobic microbes that can sometimes cause disease. So you can bubble it, but it's not necessary. It's the whole idea is that it's quick, dirty, cheap, and easy. That it's just you put it in a bucket and you go for it. If you're going to try to bubble the air to try to make it better, it's actually advisable not to do that if you can, if you don't need to. However, if you are what Vince was talking about, the IMO4, which is another one of these 9 core solutions, that put in water and bubble that with the other solutions combined that you saw in that chart that I shared, that will produce an amazing compost tea that you can put out. And it's called liquid IMO, and talk about that sometimes. And Leilani, or Lele is asking, how often should we spray the cheap micro recipe? The idea is that if you can spray, it depends what you're trying to do. If you're doing soil preparation, if you can spray it 2 weeks ahead of time before you get out there to plant, you'll have those microbes. They'll even start to form a little crust. They'll start to go down, just like Vince was saying, his shovel goes into the ground easier. So if you can spray it on a weekly basis, 2 weeks before you start planting, twice a week, once a week for 2 weeks, be clear with that. You'll get this microbe start to grow. How often should you do it for bioremediating other land? It's when you can. And the best way to even do it is to just do a drench. Like oftentimes when I'm making these piles of things around, I'll make a trash can, a 35-gallon trash can, and I'll fill it like a quarter of the way with that solution. And then I'll go out there and I'll fill the rest up with water once it's ready and bubbly. And then I'll just dump that trash can over. So I'm highly concentrating these right into the area that I'm starting to farm and grow in and build soil foundation. So it all depends on how often you can afford it and what you're trying to accomplish. But the more frequently you use these things, the better off you're going to be. Drake, stay MacGyvering spray to another inexpensive level. Heck yeah. Cool. So there's no more questions in the chat. I want to thank you guys for tuning in here. Want to remind you, I got the office hour. If you do have any questions, you want to check things out. And yeah, appreciate it all the time. Oh, well,
Hey,
I guess there is one more question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Where does home extended EM1 sub in the KNF methods? So if you were to go and take homemade EM, it's going to be very similar to the lactobacillus, the protectors that I was talking about. So any place you'd use them, they're great at fighting back disease that happens. They're great at repairing the soil. They're great at protecting your crop. And as long as you're putting foods with those, they're great. And and Cab, who's actually, it looks like he's in here. Maybe you want to weigh in for a second and just pitch your Bokashi, your EM talk that's coming up. I don't know if it's just Gail or Cab, but. And Gail was on last night, which Katie said the YouTube is up, which was an amazing panel. So check that out.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And good, as he's going to come on. Drake, Cab's going to be giving his presentation 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want to boost them up too much.
Yeah, no, we're skipping Thanksgiving, and then the week after that. But Drake, what do you feel while we're waiting for Cab? And it's really cool tonight. You got a number of leaders on your talk tonight. Doug Fine and Cab, of course. Ned Whitlock, our farmer extraordinaire from Kauai. So it's really wonderful to see everybody on here. What is the limiting factor, do you feel, besides not doing it, to KNF? What's the limiting factor?
Well, I would say one limiting factor is there's a decent learning curve with it. However, hey, Cab. But experimenting, getting it right, trying. The thing is, there's a large margin of error. So if you miss it, you can be okay. The other thing is that a limiting factor for a lot of people can be it's hard to change habits. You have something that works. And so how, it's scary, like farmers, they're risking their whole life to shift to try some new method. And it's like, here's something that people say they have success with. If you can't see that success and then model it after someone, finding the time to learn, to go out, to try, to experiment, to put your whole livelihood on the line is a challenge. So seeing these examples of it working, knowing that it does, getting high quality solutions from someone that's certified and accredited, that you're getting the right stuff, and transitioning. I mean, but the benefits that you'll get are immense, and I apologize as one of the people that it's like it's easier to do it and have people copy you than to teach and tell people.
Wow.
And I just have not been able to replicate the stuff that I've seen in Korea, where they're doing these amazing greenhouses where they're selling strawberries, as big as your fist with no air pocket in the middle. And they're just banging. If I put in a long house and grew these amazing strawberries, I bet I couldn't stop people from trying to copy me. I bet, I'd have a line of people being like, hey, this and that. But the solutions work. You want to see it in action. It's the pigs, the animals don't lie. You start small, just sub out one thing, just start to add a little bit of this, microbe solution in with whatever else you got, and wean yourself towards this, because it'll reduce your cost. There's papers and studies from the University of Hawaii showing extreme reduction in cost of all, and I'm not just talking about Korean natural farming, I'm talking about regenerative and biological systems. Over the long run, they will drive down your cost because year after year, your system gets richer. So what's the hang up? It's enough faith, it's seeing it, it's believing it, it's modeling these systems. It's, and I wish I could clone myself and then make my clone obey me and be like, you farm.
Well, Drake, that was a great answer. Truly, man, a great answer to a question that is somewhat loaded, because we love KNF so much and practicing with KNF and see all the benefits of it. But you're right on. There's the aspects of the learning curve, and at the same time, just being able to transition. In other words, being able to into something else when you're using another practice. So we're here at Farmers Union to help people out in that respect. And I want to turn it over to Cab. And Cab, maybe you could set the table for next 2 weeks from tonight and what talk you're going to give. And Drake, stay here, will you? Because we're not finished with you yet.
Oh, my.
Well, good evening, everyone. And first of all, Drake, thank you so very much for all your kind words and your loving pursuit and bringing us down this trail so far. And it's amazing to see results, and then want to share that results with other farmers, and making it real to people is what we're trying to do. And I really appreciate all your experiments and your endeavors and all that. We've all had our own ways of approaching and experimenting. And the reason I'm staying with Bokashi and and EM so along is because it just seems to be so easy. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But we're all headed for the same place. We just got different ways of getting there. And I really appreciate the independent thinking that you're exercising. And that's a really cool thing. So we'll see y'all, and we'll talk about all this in depth in a couple of weeks. And yeah, keep up the good work, all you soil-minded people. And remember, till-free is the way to go, and increase microbial structure.
Right on, Cav. That's great. And you and your wife, 1 + 1 = 3. Gail just rocked it last night. That was just an amazing presentation. All those folks. And Doug Fine's going to be up in 2 weeks. Last night, so 2 weeks from yesterday, 2 weeks Tuesday, we're going to have another Hemp Tuesday. And then we have Ben Lillybridge from Malama Mushroom on that Monday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, coming out of Thanksgiving is going to be rocking, and just like tonight was. So everybody, please tell your friends, come back and be part of this magical mystery tour that we're on. It's one thing I've noticed, and you guys could concur with this, regenerative farmers seem to be passionate to like bubbling over because of what we see happen with the INA, right? I mean, it just bubbles over. I see it in you, Cab. I see it in you, Drake. When look at Katie, our communications chair, she's just always bubbling over. She just loves this stuff, And so it's a thing where we really appreciate everyone that's part of the union. It's a wonderful dance. We're dancing here, and thankfully we get the results from the INA to keep us well amongst all the pandemic nonsense that's going on. And truly, I say nonsense because I'll share one thing that I kind of went off on. Was I heard them say when the variant hit, they said that people have been letting down their guard because of all the numbers, and I went, letting down their guard? I said, that happened back when TV dinners came in vogue, and the denaturing of our food supplies. So, it's a thing where us as regenerative agricultural enthusiasts and practitioners, we know what nutrient density is. We know how you get that in your food. And that's what we're about to provide to the community. So Drake and Cab, Ned, all you leaders, Doug, it's wonderful to have you all on the same call tonight. And we'll look forward to continue to rock this, especially during convention time when we're all together. I'm looking forward to that. So thank you, everybody. If there's nothing else tonight, we're going to, Bob Schaefer's on tonight too. Bobby the Schaefer. All right. Our agronomist extraordinaire who just was on Maui yesterday working with us with the Soil Health Initiative. So yeah, some really great people here, and I appreciate y'all. So with that, coming to you from beautiful downtown Hana, I'm here for my birthday weekend, and I'm glad I could be on tonight. I was wondering if I was going to be able to with the internet. So you all be well, stay positive, test negative. We love you all. Aloha.
Aloha.